Hello, welcome to the September 10th Substrate Sync. Got a relatively light agenda today. I think Young Chul has two items drafting mostly requests for PR reviews. One is on some type alias work, which I've been meaning to get to. It might just be an action item for after. And then there's also another small PR that he has, which is just adding, I think Jackson looked at it, which is adding advanced extensions to other common fields that make it more in line with it's safe computation and load computation don't have advanced extensions, hence statistics and everything else does. So he's just adding these fields, which should probably be there. That second one's a pretty straightforward review, I think. And yeah, I assume that's why he added those in today. Next item is mine. It's on the variadic functions and function signature compound names. I was looking at the discussion from last week. I think I posted in the Slack a bit as well. But the thing that I was confused about from the discussion last week is that my understanding is that function signature compound names should include the variadic argument once, and I'm not sure where the concept of not including them comes from.
That was my understanding as well. Someone else was saying that it wasn't specified.
It's not, the behavior is actually not specified, but it doesn't say that you shouldn't do it. It doesn't say that you should. In practice, Substrate Go and Substrate Java do it, and it's based on the definition. It's not based on the invocation. And I think that's where I came up. That's where I was looking at it in the dialect PR, where the thing that we have now to uniquely identify functions is the function compound signature, which has this format, and that's consistent across the ecosystem so far.
But we should probably specify it. If we say that it needs to be there once, we should make sure it's specified, because that was the point of confusion in the discussion last week, or whatever, 2 weeks. Was some people thought that it was one way and some people thought that it was the other.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a discussion in the Slack that started, but it sounds like, if that's just a confusion, I'll make a PR for that, and we can just kind of document it there, and then maybe we can update the dialect PR if that'll work. I guess, David, you had the other idea in your head.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point was to go back and double check to see exactly what was going on and make sure it was consistent. Okay.
I'll make the PR for the variadics in the signatures, and then we can discuss it there, and then that should hopefully make it consistent, because it is under documented, right? It doesn't say to include, it doesn't say not to.
There is APR changing it, just suggesting to change it to 0, I think.
It could be.
But I could be.
There's a PR changing it to 0? Verification.
Yeah.
That's different.
This might be something different. This might be saying that.
That has to do with calling variadic functions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we want to make a ruling on this PR as well, since?
Yeah, we can add it. I'll add it to the
agenda.
The PR queue for the week. We've already added your 2 PRs, Young Chul, as well.
Seems like a good idea to talk at least a little bit about the type 1, the type alias one, just to see if anybody has any strong opinions. Do you guys want to pull that up? It's a simple PR, so I'd probably take 2 minutes to look at it and then we can talk about it.
Let's do it now.
An idea makes sense to me. I'm just looking at the description of the PR.
Doesn't user defined already refer to user defined type by number?
Well, I think there's a situation where you have a user defined type, and then you have a instance of that type, right? If it's like a parameterized type. That was my mental understanding of it. I have not thought hard about that. But like, let's say you define your own map type, which has, is 3 types in parameter instead of 2. And you have complex nested structure of that you're invoking again and again, right? And then you want to, and so right now, every time you declare that type, you have to use it.
So it's not that the
declare
user
all the
defined type
parameters.
itself is wordy. It's that it's a map struct list, map list, or something like that.
So basically, the motivation of this thing is what we found is we kind of like model the collation string with the collation as a user defined type internally. So now, well, we initially, why not? Collation, just use collation name as a string. And then now we are having like giant constants, whatever, like all the instances of these like collation strings like all over the place with collation name repeated like 1,000 times, which is not great. But then, yeah, I mean, we can, of course, like replace the strings as something, I mean, integer or whatever. However, I mean, this can be generic. Like if you have like any complex type definition, for now, like we just spell out like whenever it is needed. So this will basically, as the same spirit as the functions, anchors, and all these anchors, this is exactly the same spirit.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the PR and I'm probably missing something. So I'm looking at the message type. Has a one of kind.
Yeah.
And so now we've added a new possible kind. So I was wondering what was there before? Like if I'm going to use type alias reference, what did I have in that spot before?
Well, you could have used int or double or map or all the other types.
Well, sure, but those are all small. Like those are empty messages.
But if there were structures that you could,
So because I guess I thought it was like, because I don't see where the user-defined type name would appear in this message.
Actually, let me ask a question there. How is it that did you actually add another type, which is like collated string?
Collated string, but the collated string has a data, I mean string data, and the collation string, the collation ID or collation identifier, which
I think, but specifically like in this one of, did you add something?
Oh, I see.
no.
So the message user-defined has repeated parameters.
Correct.
And a message parameter has a string value.
Exactly.
Okay, so this was showing up as a very long string value in the user-defined type.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So user-defined, like parameterized, any parameterized types will have a specific parameter instances spelled out in type.
You could now type alias the user-defined type that you've added to avoid having to repeat it.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
So let me ask a question on line 54.
1 second. I need to
recreating
open the PR first.
Sorry. Sorry. It's funny because we originally had user-defined type references, which is, I believe, the alias of the anchor pattern, and we changed it to embedded user-defined types. And I'm like, are we just going back to the old thing?
When was
I don't think exactly we are, but
I don't think it's quite the same because previously we didn't have a way to have a parameterized user.
parameterized. Yeah.
And I see like message type alias has a type, and so that's where all the parameters would get shoved in. But I guess it's like.
I'm wondering if we corrected the wrong way. That's what I'm wondering.
Well, I think we have. So we have sort of the user-defined type itself, which was already and continues to be referred to by an anchor, and then a specific instance of that parameterized type, which is what we're aliasing. I mean, coming at this from like one perspective, I say it's harmless. Like it's just another option that users can use. That's a slightly more burden on the consumers because they're going to have to add this to the list of things that they process. It's another registry that they have to keep track of somewhere. Coming at this from like a programming language's perspective, which is maybe not the best way to come at this, but if I'm thinking of like, if I'm writing code and I have like vector of t, but that t is a super long string, like this does feel to me like maybe that's not the best pattern to follow to give your parameters super long names, but I mean, it's not like this is source code that's written by humans, so I guess I don't see.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, I will say that this exact problem was something that we struggled with when I was working at Dremio way back when, where basically you'd have these. It wasn't collated strings. It was super complicated nested types, and you just you think of type as a relatively small thing, so you repeat it throughout the plan, and then when you're serializing it, all of a sudden your plans are like 75 megabytes, and you're like, why is it taking so long for the query to start? It's because the plan's got to be serialized and deserialized like in 50 different places. So I think that it's interesting because I think that the trigger case might not be the best reason to have this, but I do think that it is a real problem.
Okay.
It seems reasonable, I guess, and also to the point about having the type conversion care about a registry. It sort of already has to actually. It's actually a bug in a lot of systems where user-defined, to process user-defined types, you need to have access to like the plan registry of the mappings from the user-defined type to the YAML file. So you already sort of need that plan level context anyway. So having the type aliases is just an additional piece of metadata. Like Substrate Go had this issue actually where it was processing user-defined types but not loading it into like the global registry it had. So like this is already a thing that we need to do in most places for user-defined types, and the type alias is like a light thing. We probably want to refine the rules like in the documentation about if you get a type alias, how do you turn that into a like the signature, and it's probably like de-alias it and encode not the name of the type, or don't put the type alias. You have to dereference it and actually inline whatever the underlying thing is, but that doesn't seem unreasonable. Like you can't put a type alias in a function signature, or you shouldn't put a type alias in a function signature. String, sorry, if that makes sense.
What do we do for parameterized types in function signature?
We don't include them in the function compound signature.
Yeah, the parameters not included. You can't have two conflicting. You can't have something that takes decimal 8, but doesn't take decimal 10.
Okay.
In the same file.
I guess a slight concern, I don't think I'm too worried about it, is like if we pick any other serialization format that's not protobuf, like text serialization, I mean, it's still going to explode, but you could introduce aliases in those serializations too.
Yeah, I mean, my comment on the PR is just that, which is that there are things that are defined that are abstract concepts that are kind of spec level things. And there are things that are nuances to protobuf serialization. And this feels like it's more the latter. Right? It's like, how do you encode this abstract specified thing into this particular serialization format? Right? It's really just normalization.
Okay. Opportunity.
Database normalization, just to clarify.
No, I guess what you're saying is like this might be something that's useful for the protobuf specifically, but doesn't necessarily like part of the core spec of what a plan means. It's like, hey, this is a convenient thing for serialization, but it's not a property of Substrate abstract plans in general.
Yeah, in the same way that I don't believe anchors are either. Like anchors of other things are not part of like Substrate proper. They're part
It's
of
encoding specific. It's not generic. And eventually, when we have our generic Substrate that's not protobuf in the future, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. It's an opportunity for protobuf to implement dictionary compression.
Yeah, exactly. We're having to build our own. Yeah, we should just make dictobuff to solve this problem.
Well,
Identify identical messages.
We'll start a whole new other project with Row and compiler boot chain and spend 10 years on that. It sounds like people are broadly on board for the type of this stuff, so I'll leave it for people to go look at it offline.
okay.
Do stuff.
That's good.
But it sounds like the biggest comment might be hey, we should probably document this a bit more. But it seems to make sense, and from my perspective, it doesn't add any existing burden to processors more than it already does because of the user-defined stuff that we already have there.
Yeah.
That's a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say it's non-existent. You have to have a whole other registry.
It's a whole other registry, but you already have to be passing in one registry, so hopefully you've set it up correctly.
But hopefully you
there's
built your
3 or 4
registries and
registries
in
at this
Substrate to be
point,
parameterized. So
Yeah.
the other one comment I have here is, have you considered contributing collated string? I know it wouldn't solve this problem. I'm not saying it does solve this problem.
Yeah, I mean, collation is called out. I mean, I called out as a 1.0 thing, and we have full interest in getting that in Substrate. So we just, I mean, Jesus and I just couldn't find enough time to actually think through and then contribute. But yeah, we are very much we are willing to contribute. Just it's a matter of time. Yeah.
My recollection on this, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that there are common collations and there are unique collations, right? Like there's a collection of common collations across databases, and then there are unique collations to databases.
Yeah, I mean,
and I don't know that the naming of the common ones is actually the same.
Yeah. So I honestly, collation is always the area that I want to touch last. I really don't want to get into this business.
Yeah, he's like someone else. We're gonna hire someone else.
Exactly. I mean,
as soon as Jack said there are database specific collations, I'm just like, please no more, please. Enough.
Exactly. I mean, unfortunately,
well, the fact that SQL Server has the default collation that's completely different than every other database is my favorite.
Correct. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, it's there's SQL Server collations and Windows collations, and then I just don't want to think about it. This is something that
if Microsoft's good at one thing, though, it's collation. So you must have a collation expert that can come and ruin all our lives.
Yeah. So it's we need to solve it. I guess we will be able to find some time to think through later this year, perhaps. But yeah.
But I think
what is it?
The alias stuff is useful regardless of the collation stuff, to the point about deeply nested maps and stuff.
Basically the collation thing, it's a trigger. But if you think in general, I mean, any complex type definition will have this problem. Like C++, you have this abhorrible iterator type. You want to spell out and when I first when auto keyword appeared, I was rejoice. It's I don't need to type all of this. This is exactly the same spread. And so, well, technically, I mean, if you just compress, this thing will just go away. However, that only just delay the problem. You still need to parse. And
from a readability perspective, aliases are nice.
Yeah. David?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how we use these aliases in the YAML files. I mean, let's say we have this nice defined thing, but you can't really use it your own functions unless you.
That's a good point. However, YAML file, I don't expect this thing spills out to YAML file.
I was going to say, yeah, the aliases can't show up in the YAML at all. They are plan specific,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
compactions.
Well, then that's my concern. It's like I've got this great type, but I can only use it for any functions.
I mean, you can use it for like your collation
It's not a
string,
type. It's
generic
I would say it's a
parameter.
pseudotype.
Yeah.
I'd say it's a pseudotype. It's presented as a type. I mean, like to me, it's entirely a normalizing protobuf structures. Like if we had a better protobuf, right? This would be hidden, right? Like it's not really a type.
So then, in order to use these things, you can't use the alias as the type. You actually have to resolve the type, the alias into the actual,
Right. Correct. Yeah.
and
Just,
use that.
Yeah. Right. That's why
That's yeah. We should call that out really clearly, right? Like that these are not, like, maybe we call it a pseudotype or something, like say this is a pseudotype and can't be used as a function argument type, for example.
So then that would also mean it won't work with type variations because it's a pseudotype.
type.
Well, the full really resolve thing can have a type variation in it.
Right, but the alias itself can't have a type variation.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was talking about when you turn it into a signature for like function lookup, you have to dereference the alias, inline it, and then convert that to a string, because the alias is purely for like reducing the number of times it shows up in the plan for human readability. It's like resolution requires the underlying type. It's just a pointer to the underlying type.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I specifically call out in the comment that this must be a concrete type. But if there's a better idea to make it more explicit and prevent the misuse, please suggest. Yeah. I mean, that's precisely the intention. We are just naming it in the plan. I mean, naming a concrete type in some compact notation. That's the old intention. And well, if you squint it, like, yeah, I mean, this could be a template. So like you essentially like partially bind the user type or whatever. But I don't want to get there. It's just adding like way more burden on processing. So just stick with the concrete type, and then you just refer it more concise way. Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Ben.
Just making sure I'm understanding correctly. The primary goal is to make the actual amount of data that's being sent over the wire smaller, or to make the plans more readable? Or both?
It's actually both.
Okay.
Well, the main motivation is reducing the bloat in the wire transfer, but it also actually unburden the parser.
And why would that have a difference on the parser?
Because this is going back to like protobuf thing. So in the protobuf, basically, if you spell out, the parser will create a message.
Okay.
Message for the type.
Sure.
And if the type is very complex objects, you just spell out like this giant thing. You will create you fully instantiate this type as a message, protobuf message, and then put it there. Repeat that like the number of occurrence of the type in the plan.
Oh, okay.
You have to initialize the memory for like the deeply nested
Exactly.
struct map struct list type thingamabob every time that you reference it once, versus just aliasing it. Be like, hey, decode it once, and then whenever you see it, here's the pointer.
Yeah.
Oh, but I mean, still the burden of the parsing, I thought that would at least still be handled by the actual generated code for protobuf, though. But you're just saying, oh, it's not?
No, that's not.
Why is that the case?
So to clarify, the parsing is, the dereferencing is not.
Because you
You have
basically
to
want to be able to
dereference
look across all those and say that they're the same type. That part is not going to be handled by protobufs. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I see.
Protobuf can't memorize it. It doesn't know how this is something like this, memorize the type explicitly, because protobuf isn't smart enough to figure out this is the same thing, and it shouldn't be. It's kind of a weird thing.
It's kind of like
It's
getting
memory.
binding for free, basically. Like these are all pointers to the same type which you can't do. Okay, I think I get it then.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is the same reason why we use them for, I guess, to take a step back. This exists for function anchors for precisely the same reason, where like function definitions can be really big, and if we inline them everywhere, they're both structurally like big blobs that Protobuf has to decode and put in memory, and then also readability-wise, they suck. So like for both reasons, it's nice to be able to pull them out. Type alias is like an extension of that concept to be like, hey, these big types keep showing up. What if we just like move them out? I almost want to add like an optional name field to them to be like, hey, here's my like map string H store thing. It's not an H store, don't worry about it, but like things like that. But maybe I don't know. That's for the PR.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Other thing on the other thing on the agenda. Ben has the
No,
URI.
sure.
Go ahead.
But I've got one more question.
Yes,
I've just been trying to pursue if there's been any work on the problem of effectively no dictionary compression for protocol. And I'm curious whether it's actually size or CPU overhead, because, and I've seen this before, right? That the standard sort of traditional, gzip or Z standard or whatever, snappy, are pretty good at substantially reducing the overhead of the size. If you're shipping a plan between two things.
Yeah.
The problem we were having before was actually the CPU overhead of the compression and the serializing and deserializing, as opposed to the actual like, oh, I gotta have a big blob on the wire. I'm curious if that's true for you as well. It's actually the overhead of decoding.
Serialization, deserialization. That is the main thing. Yeah. I mean, if you're really concerned about the wire, like raw wire number of bytes transport, but I mean, honestly, like any sort of like decent compression algorithm will just to reduce the size down to something.
Yeah.
However, in the end, you are dealing with the decompressed data and then create all this like giant nested data structure in memory. That really kills the perf.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. Any more thoughts or questions about the type alias stuff, compression, protobuf? Cool.
Okay.
The next thing is just I think Ben has a PR out to start migrating the URIs to URNs. I think last session we agreed on the general format. Makes sense to me. I think the one thing I was looking at the migration PR was suggesting that as painful as it is, we should probably not rename the fields. It does break JSON compatibility, which we sometimes care about. So I was going to suggest that we do the horrible, have a URI next to a URI, like have URI, deprecate it, introduce URN, have 2 or 3 releases where they're side by side, update everyone to use both, and then deprecate it fully and remove it. Because
the PR already does that, correct?
It does it now, yeah. I think I mentioned it to Ben.
Yeah, I made that
wanted to check in
change.
with everyone else to see if they had any major objections to it. It is more painful than the temporary period, but I think it makes the migration a lot easier because you don't have to like. If you're saving JSON plans from one system, then reading them into another system, or you're transmitting plans as JSON for reasons, then removing it fully makes it really hard to migrate.
Well, you have to update the code to read both at some point.
You have to update the code to read both, but if you fully remove the field, then you can't read. If you update the code, you can't read the old plans at all.
Yeah.
So basically, we have a temporary phase where we can read both, and then we remove it.
My guess is most consumers are ignoring this field already. Otherwise, we would have problems.
Substrate Java does it actually, and Substrate Go doesn't. Actually, the URIs can't be. They are ignored, but not necessarily because they are needed to resolve functions, so they are used. So like if you stop returning URI fields, then like a bunch of the plans would just be like, oh, there's no URIs in this, I can't resolve your functions.
The only question I have, and we don't have to get into the conversation here, but this feels like a case where there should be a one of. Let's go put that out there. People were like, no, that's not the case because it's not backwards compatible or whatever. That might be, but if you're either, you should have either URI or URN. You should not have both.
Hmm.
Just because otherwise it gets even more confusing. Like that, to me, that's a clear way to indicate that these are the alternative fields. And I think that the encoding is the same.
This has come up in the past, and I think the trick is if we're planning on removing it, putting it into a one-off to have two options, and removing it out is like another breaking change.
Well, again, it's only a JSON breaking change, which I guess my more meta concern here would be like protobuf does a lot of work to avoid breaking changes, and now
Why are we worried about JSON?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of was thinking in my like original conception of not doing the migration. I mean, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but the sense that I have is that there's not like an official JSON representation of the protobus as they are right now. So people can make JSON encodings of plans, and I guess we do in that one particular place in the kind of markdown tutorial. But like people shouldn't send JSON plans as part of production running of Substrate, right? Like that's not actually Substrate.
I think that at some point we said we would have the higher standard that we would try to maintain the JSON compatibility is a part of our compatibility guarantee. Like that protobuf, because there's a whatever a standard way that protobuf gets converted into protobuf JSON, and that we would maintain that. It's a higher bar than just protobuf compatibility. And at some point we said, now we could always reevaluate that.
If that's the case, then we have to do it this way, right? Like then that settles it. I can't do any kind of renaming of fields. But if that's not the case, then yeah.
There is actually a concept of proto-JSON wire safety. Like it's a separate set of guarantees around like these are the things that you can do with it that are safe for the JSON format. So like it is actually part of protobuf a little bit, but
it is, yeah. I was just looking at that. So the JSON format is canonical. It will at least be consistent between different languages. But the wire safety is weaker than the binary.
So why don't we just do the PR as it is? And Zach, if your concern is about people introducing both URIs and URNs, we could just make a comment as part of the protobus or in the docs or wherever you think is appropriate, just saying that the URN takes precedence if both are present, and then just leave it at that. And then at the next,
what I would suggest actually is that the producer should dual write them to begin with. And then consumers, if they only know about URIs, can handle URIs. If they see URNs, they can handle URNs. Like actually, instead of saying that you set one or the others, you set both. And then you consume URNs if they're present, and you fall back to URIs. Because then it means that if you start a system by sending, I'm only sending URNs, and it means my consumer needs to know how to accept them. I'm trying to decouple the pipes.
I see.
The
like
consumer will always need to accept both. Like that's what we've done for other migrations like this as well. Like the user-defined type migration, consumers will still accept the old anchor format.
Yeah, and I want to be one reason to not make it one-off is to make the migration easier by literally just saying do both. And then also when we remove it, we'll move it out of the one-off anyways. And if you're going to do the migration in like a month or so, Ben, like in that period of time, like 2 or 3 releases, we should have enough time to like excise URNs from the or URIs from the system, and then we'll get rid of it.
Okay. So, but is bringing fields just into a one-off a backwards compatible change? I would think it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bringing it in is, I don't remember bringing it out is. It is in some cases, it's not in others.
It's a repeated field when it's in a one-off. So that's so if you make it just an optional,
You lose
it's
the
fine.
ability to determine presence, I think, if you pull it out of the one. No, I think that's only before they fix the Proto 3
the optional's
backwards.
back. So
Stupid
as
shit.
long as you
Yeah.
make it optional when you pull it out, it's fine.
Yeah,
I don't have a strong opinion. I like the proposal of saying like, hey, set both. Like, I appreciate what Victor was saying about like, hey, trying to disconnect the two ends of the pipe. And so saying set both and one has precedence seems good.
So is it sufficient if we go that route for me to just make that a comment in the protobuf? I don't know if there's like needs to be acknowledgement of a migration anywhere in the actual markdown documentation.
I think it's probably view level. I don't have an opinion about that. I mean, I haven't
I
spent
don't
enough
have a
time
strong
thinking
opinion
about it.
about it. I think if we're going to do this and do it quickly, we don't need it to be around for too long. And it's mostly the libraries that handle this from people, and anyone who's using Substrate from a really old version might have to come talk to us about it when they realize that their plans don't work, and they'll be like, you have to upgrade to this version, do your stuff, and then upgrade further. But there's a migration path.
Okay, so then the only change it sounds like we're all agreeing on with the PR is just adding one comment to the protobuf saying that if both are present, the URN takes precedent, and that's it. Good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Then yeah, if you do that, we can look at that PR and merge that in, and then we'll have.
I can just see Ben's engineering manager being like, "What the fuck is going on with this PR? It was supposed to be like a two-line patch."
I mean,
Lucky
jokes
for
aside,
you,
fucking
it's
2 months.
Victor. So it's Victor.
in much the same way that he's him, technically Ben's manager. I'm also the one that gets the recording. So when people say things like we're more productive when you're not around, I do see that. That was really funny.
Just
Yeah.
out of curiosity, how do we communicate with the breaking changes? Do we send out an email or?
So the way it's supposed to work is that your commit change has breaking change listed in it, and then it automatically is produced in the release notes. That's all we do right now.
Okay, release notes. Okay.
Actually, then
So
your
if you look
change
at
is
the
no longer
releases-
breaking. We should update your PR comment to not include feet bang.
Okay.
Oh no,
Uh,
feet bang is fine. It's breaking change that causes the
No, feet
features are
bang.
not.
The exclamation mark in conventional commits is breaking change, by the way.
Oh, well that's good to know.
Sometimes
All
it
right.
fails because
Yeah, remove the bang.
the NPM
Okay.
the NPM tooling can't parse it for reasons, which is why we use breaking change. But yeah, it's not breaking. It'll be breaking when we remove the fields.
Okay. 2 changes that I will put in the PR. Comment change the Git history so that there's nothing breaking changes, but a breaking change
You
will be introduced later.
when I squash merge it, I'll make it not breaking.
Okay. So we do squash merges because I was trying to be very careful about making the commit history nice, which is why after your suggestion I rewrote everything, but I will never do that again if that's the case.
I do
So-
look at the history and I do actually consolidate the comments. If people write nice ones, I will include it in the squash. If they don't, I will write new ones usually.
Okay. Good to hear.
I think conventional commits doesn't like not squash merging because it results in like I think it wants like this change has this.
All of us dislike not squash conversion. So
Yeah, I agree with that statement. But
Yeah. Cool.
any other questions or any other topics for today?
So I joined late, but so are we agreed to revise the signature, function signature?
Oh yes, I was going to add notes to that. Effectively, the discussion it's in the Slack as well. I asked a question about this, but effectively, the discussion last week was you don't include variadic arguments in the function signature. That's not written anywhere, and in practice, every system includes it once, and that's how you generate like the function identifier. Is that you include it once. The bindings for those functions might have less or more, but the definition includes it in like the YAML, and the signature includes it once. And that's how you can identify like this function is this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to update the spec to mention that yes, include the variadic function or include the variadic arguments in the signature once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, the one other thing I call out is that I had an inbound email from someone. I think someone that maybe they work at Alibaba. I think that I responded to and CC'd the mailing list. So if people could take a look at that and see if they have any response to that, that would be helpful. He's basically wanting to look at integrating MySQL with Substrate, and was looking at the C++ library and asking questions about it. And frankly, I've not really spent any time on that, or very, very little time on that. So if anybody else could take a look at that, if you haven't already, in the mailing list, that would be good.
Yeah, I did see that, like, that title, and it did make me think of actually David, the dialect PR. Once, if we have to clarify the variadic function in the signature stuff, is there anything else that you think we need to do before, like, getting that in?
I think that was it.
Okay, because I know there's some questions about whether that signature is, like, correct in the long term, but I think it's, we might want to update the function signature at some point in the future to make it better, but that'll be a breaking change in general across the ecosystem. But
Right.
But yeah, if it's good for the dialects, then yeah, I'll update the website with the signature stuff. You can update the dialect PR, and then we can get those merged in. And yeah, and we'll have dialects, and then it can be like, hey, MySQL extension is maybe a MySQL dialect, and then yeah, cool, awesome.
Cool.
You look confused.
All right, everyone. Right. Yeah, Boshin does look confused.
Yeah, I was just like, wait, is this guy in the mailing list, or have we just been replying to ourselves in that email thread the entire time?
Well, I CC'd him when I wrote my message.
Oh, but I just realized like all the email messages afterwards just go to substrate@googlegroups.com.
Yeah, it's a Google group.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've seen it yet. If he's seen it yet. If he's part of it.
That's possible that he hasn't. Or it could be that the Google Groups rips off. Does mine show up as being to both?
Yeah, yours shows up as being to Substrate and to Kaiwan at Gmail.
Okay, so yeah, so I'll ping him privately and just say, hey, make sure you're on the list because people are responding there. Yeah. All right.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Peace. Thank you.
Stop the recording.